I mean, nobody can be as much of a weeb as Steve.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to get to his level. The last time I saw him, he had blue spiky hair. and subtitles were under him. And sometimes I can feel his killing intent. Like, it's just
my
like
spiritual pressure. My Ryatsu. And then I shadow step.
He did tell us about a story involving a samurai sword.
Hey, everybody. You already know what it is. As they say, return of the Brad. I was going to say the return of the black. The return of the black, but I said that's a little bit too much. But it's been a while. I haven't been the first voice that you heard in a minute, so it's good to be back. And you already know who's in the building. We got the boys. What's up, the brothers? Did I say the boys? The brothers. What's up, Kyle? What's happening with you, man?
Hey, what's going on, Brad? I'm doing good, man. It's not too much going on. Having a good day.
That's what's up. And of course, we have the other brother, our brother Steve. What is happening, brother Steve? How are you,
brother
doing,
Steve?
Sir?
I don't know why, but brother Steve always sounds a little more culty than like brother Brad or brother Kyle. I don't know why.
Maybe because it's toward you. I don't know.
I don't know. I grew up in like Southern, Baptist churches, so brother deacon, like that's super normal.
Yeah. I agree. Like brother is normal, but for some reason, brother Steve, maybe it's a character. I don't know.
Maybe it's because you imagine yourself like running a cult if you were called Brother Steve.
Maybe, I'm just projecting.
Like, Brother Steve.
My future plans.
Yes, my acolytes.
Light the torch.
But yeah, man, I mean, I feel like we've always had like a whole bunch to say before we start the episode. But today I feel like we can get right into this, man. Like, I feel like we don't have any prefaces.
Let's do it.
It's just the episode. It's just gonna be greatness. So so today we're gonna return to one of our old friends, anime. We haven't talked anime in a while. It's just been like a lot of gaming stuff, which is cool. I mean, I love games. I can talk with games all the time. But I figured, hey, let's talk a little bit of anime. So today I just want to talk a little bit about like what initially drew us into animes, what really resonates for us in anime, and kind of, the differences between American animation and Japanese animation, and really what we see in those differences and how they matter. So I guess out the gate, let me ask you guys, like, what initially drew you into anime? I'm assuming we all saw it like on TV or something like that, right. But what was I don't know, what drew you into anime, and what made you go, wow, like I think I'm gonna keep watching? I guess we could start with the boy Steve. I know you're an anime aficionado. I think that's the word.
You honor me. My first anime experience outside of like, well, you're right. I think seeing it on TV, watching Pokemon and Digimon. I didn't really have cable growing up, so I wasn't watching Cartoon Network. I wasn't watching Toonami, so I missed out on all those on the coming of age of all my friends. But Pokemon and Digimon. I think as a child, I didn't realize. I just thought of it as cartoons. I'm like, whatever. It's just cartoons. It's drawn a little weird, not weird, different, but it's distinct, right? Like Pokemon looked like Digimon. I was like, oh, okay. Whereas other cartoons didn't really look like each other. I don't know, man. I remember growing up and eventually understanding this is what anime is. But I was really ignorant of like not just the cultural differences, but just the genre differences. I was like, oh, it's just Japanese cartoons. Why is everyone so like, why does everyone feel the need to categorize this and make it weird? Like, let people watch cartoons. It's fine. And over time, I realized that was ignorant, and it is different. And yeah, but as far as what drew me in, is that still the question? Am I getting ahead of us?
Yeah, I mean, whatever is on your mind, brother.
Whatever's on my mind. Let me tell you of the show I've been watching. No,
deep.
I have been watching something recently. It's not anime, but it's so.
Oh boy.
We could talk about it some other time. I just ask me about larva.
Mm?
Those of you who
Okay.
know, but if not, if you're
You
ignorant,
don't know.
feel free to ask me about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a follow-up question. I'm gonna write
All
that
right.
down.
Good. Write that down.
I hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember thinking this is different. I changed my mind. But what got me into anime like as a genre and actually liking it, I think it was in college. It must have been before college, but all I can think about no. Yeah, it was in high school when I had other people that were super into anime and were like passing them around like, oh, have you seen this? Have you watched this?
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned Elfen Lied before, and I've talked about how it's kind of a trash anime and it's really sketchy, and I don't really suggest it necessarily. But I remember watching that and also, yeah, and just being kind of blown away. Like, wow, this is so different from from other cartoons. It's violent. It's very culturally not what I expect. And since then, I've really just learned to appreciate the fantasy and kind of the outlook that Japanese writers, I think, tend to have that American writers maybe don't have or haven't had in the past. I love the fantasy elements, that kind of comes from Japanese lore and folk tales and mythology. I like the takes on other cultures that Japanese people do. Sometimes I like them. Sometimes I'm like, this is goofy. This is corny.
Yes, that's a way to put it. They're corny.
Yeah, but I like that they do it. It's interesting to see how they do things. And now it is like, cool fighting anime and and explosions and beautiful art and nice music.
Okay, cool. So what about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I think I have overall pretty similar, I guess, origins as to what drew me to anime. Yeah, I was into drawing, art and stuff, cartoons, like many other kids of our day. We had the Saturday morning cartoons, and so there was a little bit of overlap where they'd play, because 4 kids, they would play some of the anime, and so I'd watch it on those. But before that, just to kind of in the same vein as, noticing there was something different before that, pretty much all I would watch is like Disney stuff. And so like if you look at Disney, like, and then you watch anime for the first time, it's just like, whoa, what is this? Because you got all these hard edges drawn on these characters. You have this lighting, this perspective.
The sharp chins, big
eyes.
eyes.
The sharpest chins.
The sharpness.
Right. Big hair, and like nobody's moving. Because in Disney, everybody's like over animated, you could argue. But then in anime, it was like when somebody's fast, they barely move at all. And like when they're talking, they're just sternly looking at each other, blinking a little bit. And it took me years to understand what the mouth flaps meant.
The mouth was flapping, but the chin and jaw were not articulating.
Exactly. And I'm like, this Disney, this ain't
interesting,
but I'm into it. And so, I was watching Sonic X. That was kind of, and Kirby Right Back at You. Kirby Right Back at You were kind of like my transition shows, I guess. And because I really played more games about anime than I watched in the beginning. Like I was aware of Dragon Ball Z from the games. And then, of course, like you, Steve, I watched Pokemon and Digimon when they came on TV. But, I think I actually might have played the game Pokemon Blue before I actually watched the anime. I'm not 100% certain.
Basically happened at the same time.
Yeah, it was really, really close. And so, all that kind of just fell together. And similar, I didn't have cable until I was in high school. And so I didn't watch anime proper until I was older. And so I missed out on it too. My friends would talk about it in 8th grade. about Roni Kenshin. I remember that distinctly because I wanted to watch it so stinking bad, and I had no way to. And they would just talk about it all recess long, and I'd be out of the loop. So I'll never forget that. And so that kind of drew me into it too. I guess the FOMO.
Yeah, FOMO is real, especially for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when your friends are talking about something and you have no idea. It just sounds cool and there's no way for you to access it. So you just kind of like create even a greater like imagination around that thing. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
This sounds so crazy.
And it met the expectations. Like it fit the hype. Anime was everything that they said it was and more.
Yeah.
I think there was like there was a missing piece of culture that anime filled for us because kids shows were usually really wholesome and really lighthearted and fantastical. Well, everything's fantastical, but there generally wasn't something that was dark or mature or had like interesting characters. The characters were goofy in a lot of American cartoons. And I mean, think about like Courage the Cowardly Dog, goofy characters that don't really like, as far as character studies, the show's not great, but people loved the creepy horror themes and, the darkness of it because it was different. And I think anime filled that need. And a lot of edgy kids who didn't really fit into the cliques and the cool kids at school probably felt like, oh, this is the culture that's for me. Like everything else is for them. This is for me.
I feel like for me, the anime, it's hard for me. I was like, even as I like kind of came up with this idea for the conversation and like thinking through as you guys are talking, I'm trying to like remember the first anime that I ever watched, because I think kind of like you guys, I wasn't aware that it was an anime.
Yeah.
I just knew it was a cartoon and it was cool, and I'm pretty sure it was on Cartoon Network, and I feel like the first anime I ever I saw like Voltron when I was like a little kid, but I didn't really watch it. I have an older brother. He's 5 years older than me. So like that was his show and I would periodically see it, but it didn't really make sense to
Is
me.
Voltron... Wait. Sorry, let me think about this. Transformers is an American show, right?
I don't know if it originated in the US, but
I think it is.
I'm pretty sure it did.
But Voltron is not? I've always kind of put them together, but I guess Voltron is more like Gundam.
Yeah, Voltron is like the OG. Like, I think it precedes almost every anime from like I think it's like Power Rangers and like Voltron were like the first like real Japanese.
Well,
like
Kamen Rider, I think, was before Power Rangers.
Who?
Kamen Rider.
That's not even an anime, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Power Rangers is either.
I think like
Ultraman.
Yeah, like I think like popular, like really popular, like kids things. Like those were like the first big ones that came from Japan. As far as I know. I mean, like other shows I'm pretty sure existed, like there's probably shows from other countries that came over. But like, we all know Power Rangers. But Power Rangers was slick because what they did was they,
stole.
Put American actors for like the cutscenes.
Right.
And then just dubbed over the action, which was super smart.
It worked so stinking well.
Really, whoever did that deserves
genius.
An Oscar.
Yeah. And they somehow managed to localize and, it's really smart. But then when you, of course, when you go back knowing that, you can see all the little holes. Like, that's why, they had to write out a character for a whole episode because the footage they're using for this fight doesn't have that ranger in it.
Right.
Like, just imagine, like, the writer studio. Like, whoever was in there was killing it, So, for me, like, Voltron was, like, something I was aware of but didn't watch. I have to say it was Dragon Ball Z for me.
Yeah.
But I know, and I was growing up playing a lot of games, video games, And I knew that video games were coming from Japan. Like, I was aware of that. And I did, at some point, connect the two. Like, oh, these are, like, very similar. And I think that connection point happened with Pokemon, like you guys were saying. Like, I'm playing the Pokemon game. I'm in 6th grade. I know I was watching Dragon Ball Z before 6th grade because I remember talking about it with my friends in 6th grade. I know I was playing Pokemon before 6th grade because I, whatever. But, like, I remember there's this girl. Her name was Victoria.
Ooh.
And she lived, like, okay, I might have explained this a long time ago, but, like, the school system I grew up in, like, I had to, like, basically get bused across Atlanta to get to my school. So it took like 2 hours to get to school.
You told us about that.
So pretty much any show that came on before like 5:36, I was like, me and all my friends were unaware of, right? But there was a few people who lived like within the area of the school a little bit closer, or they got picked up by their parents. So they got home earlier. And I remember this girl, Victoria, she was like, have y'all seen the Pokemon show? And we were like, what? Pokemon has a show? Like, I remember all our friends like, nah, you lying, you making that up. Like, like we're kids. And she's like, no, like there's a Pokemon show. It comes on at 4:30. We're like, of course it comes on at 4:30 because you can't, like, none of us get home at 4:30. So we know you're lying. You know what I'm saying? Like, and she was like, no, it comes on at 4:30 and like with Ash is in it and there's Pikachu and this is, and we're like, this is all made up. Eventually, I don't know what happened. They changed the time slot on Pokemon to be a little bit later. And it was like, it took over the school, Of course, it took over the world for all kids. And the kid got hit by a train and all kind of stuff, like Pokemon became a thing. But that was the first time that I really felt like there's a connection between like Japan and like, anime. Like that, there's something different here.
Right.
Because it was like you knew it was different, but you didn't really know why. You know what I'm saying? Like you knew it. And then from then on, it was this. I mean, honestly, I feel like Cartoon Network and Toonami was it. I mean, and of course, like WB Kids had some anime and stuff like that. But like Toonami was really what I feel like ingratiated me to anime. And at the time, I didn't even know it was anime. But Dragon Ball, I started to know was Japanese because my brother was older and he had access to the internet and was talking about,
Hello?
R2D2? I promise you I just heard R2D2.
I heard it.
But
R2D2,
but yes.
Your Highness.
but my brother, he was on the internet and showing us Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and we were just blown away, and it was in Japanese. So yeah. So let me ask you guys. Steve.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This might come up again later, but I just want to say I have a cousin who's older than me, and I remember being at his house when I was a child, and he showed me the Animatrix, which was pretty cool.
Oh.
And I don't even know if I had seen the Matrix at that point. Like I was super young. Oh, you know what? I had like seen bits and pieces of the Matrix. I had played.
Come out before then.
Yeah, it definitely did. But I hadn't sat down and watched it. Like I might have seen pieces on TV. I played part of the video game on PlayStation 2 at a friend's house. So I was aware of it, but I didn't really know all the ins and outs. But he showed me the Animatrix, and then he showed me Ghost in the Shell.
Ooh.
And I did not have the mental capacity
No, nobody does.
to understand what was going on. All I saw was this intro CGI ugly looking sequence. At the time it was gorgeous, and this cool music, and there's like tanks and invisible robots.
Oh, that's great.
I was like, I am so in. This will always be my favorite. Every time I see him, I mention like, do you remember how you basically turned me into a weeb in one day?
He's like, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
Shout out to older cousins.
Yeah.
Showing you things that you shouldn't see. Yes. Same. I had older cousins show me all the kind of things. Just like shows and like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing.
How do they get access to this stuff?
They're older.
They're older.
Ways.
That's it.
That was it. Just because they're older.
And then when you're older, like sometimes you have like your friends will give you stuff, like and you can like like if you're like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 9, you don't really know how to hide things.
True.
you know. But when you're like a middle school teenager, you're starting to learn. So
learn how to deceive.
Yes, you really are. You know, I have a whole story about that. Me and Charlene were just talking about, but I'm not. That's a side tangent. So anyway, I was gonna ask this question because you brought it up, Steve.
Nice.
So, what was the first anime that you sought out on your own?
Ooh,
that wasn't like that you saw on a TV show, but something that you had to find via some other medium online, buy the DVDs, blah 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 blah. Like, do you remember? I mean, I can answer this because I know what mine was.
Yeah, what's yours?
Mine was Bleach. And I remember the exact sequence of events that led up to me learning about Bleach. So I had a friend, shout out to Leon. What's up, Leon? Leon, good friend back in high school. And we used to hang out and talk, and we had different classes together. And Leon, we're talking one day, and he just says to me, he's like, I feel like I know a show that you would like. He said it kind of just on the slick, we were just talking.
Like he's never suggested a show to anyone before, and he's afraid of what might happen.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a little bit of context in the sense that this is in high school, and this is the first time I've been in a real multicultural environment. I grew up my whole life around people who look like me, Black people. And this time I was going to school with white people, Black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, Indian people who are also Asian. You know what I'm saying? I was getting immersed into a lot of different cultures. And Leon was an Asian guy, right? And I think most of the time, me and Leon, we'd hang out and we were cool, but we just didn't talk about that kind of stuff, I guess you could say, if that makes sense. So I think he knew that I was down, but I don't know if he knew I'd be. He's like, oh, I know you like these kind of shows. And I know you like video games. I think you might like this. You know what I'm saying? But at this point, anime, Bleach, that's was hardcore. Because it wasn't on TV and it wasn't in English. You know what I'm saying?
So it was a real deal.
So it was a real deal. And you had to go to a sketchy website or use a Kazaa or BearShare, for anybody who knows what that is, a peer-to-peer downloader.
LimeWire.
And you had to go, you had to do a lot of effort to get these episodes. Also, they're getting released on every weekly, right? And there are all these different dubbers, and the dubs were different, and they were mistimed. It was a very different Wild Wild West.
I was about to say Wild Wild West.
So it was an investment. So even him approaching me about it, and then he told me hey, there's this anime I think you'll like. It's called Bleach, but it's not in English. And I was like, really? And he was like, it's a show. I don't even think he said anime. He's like, he might have just said a show. It's an anime. And he was like, it's in Japanese, but it has English subtitles. I can tell you where to go to get it. I think you'll like it. And I was like, huh. It piqued my interest. And at this time, I think I was still on dial-up. So downloading stuff was, not especially a full episode.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Hours.
And this was
hours.
48p. It was more, it was 5 meg, it was 50 megabytes. And that's a lot, a commitment. So I just remember going, let me check this out. And I remember hearing that anime intro with the Japanese music for the first time. I'd never heard Japanese intros before.
Ooh.
Oh, because the 4Kids jokers would put the cringiest.
Oh,
dragon, ball the dragon, balls me.
Digital monsters.
You remember them though.
That's true.
You remember, and they're for us American kids, but this was Japanese, and I was like, whoa, it was real professional music I'd never heard before. And then Bleach. And it was this adult, deep, I can feel it. Now I'm getting goosebumps. I remember watching it the first time on my computer in the living room at night because I didn't want to disturb anybody. And I'm got my headphones on. I'm like, oh my goodness, and that was it. I was done. I was an anime weeb from that point on. In Bleach, and the next was Naruto, and then it was
Wow.
changed my life. So shout out to Leon. Shout out to Leon, man.
What's up, Leon?
Shout out to Leon.
You got any Rex, bro?
Come through, Leon.
Come through. He was my plug. He was my anime plug, man. He said
Leon's somebody's older cousin.
he was mine. So do y'all remember the first, like, how y'all got introduced to the real deal?
I think, and it was kind of later in life, because I didn't have good internet at home. I still don't. Like, my parents still have very lousy internet. So I didn't have really the means, I guess, to search out anime before I went to college, believe it or not. And so, I'd see things on TV, and maybe, I don't even remember if I even used YouTube, because, like, when I tell you the internet was trash, bro, it was useless.
Garbage.
So I think my freshman year of college, because I was an art student, so I was being introduced to a whole new world of, like, anime and manga and comics and just everything, because everybody there just had infinite knowledge, apparently. And I think the first one, because a lot of people talk about it a lot, the first one that I sought out to watch was Naruto, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
Huh. And you watched that dubbed? I mean, subbed?
No, I'm pretty sure I watched it dubbed. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's wild.
I don't remember
Naruto.
what platform it was on. It wasn't on YouTube, because YouTube wasn't
Was it Hulu?
that popular yet. No, this was in 2010.
Well, Hulu existed in 2006.
I didn't have Hulu.
It was free back then.
Hulu was free?
Yeah. Hulu, because back in the day, the original model for Hulu was that it would just let you watch the shows that you missed on network TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I think it was ad supported, pretty much.
Back when they were humble.
And before Netflix and all that stuff. And yeah, that's kind of how I watched a lot of TV shows when I was in college.
It might have been then.
But I don't know when Hulu got Naruto, but I know it got it, like, at some point.
I feel like a lot of websites were sketchy back then, so I couldn't tell you if it wasn't Hulu based on sketchiness alone. But the website was pretty sketchy.
Okay, it probably wasn't Hulu then. Hulu was pretty professional at that point.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, might not have been.
Yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about it, and
what you got?
I don't know if it counts, because you said something that wasn't on TV. Technically, I saw Digimon on TV, but years later in high school, I found a website called, like, Digimon Spirit or something, and it's no longer up. But
GeoCities.
No, it wasn't. Wow. Yeah, maybe. But they had download links for pretty much every episode of Digimon, including seasons I hadn't seen before. And so,
wow.
I don't these days as much, but I would get into arguments about Digimon, and I'd be like, look, guys, you don't understand. I've watched this recently. That was because I had watched it all basically in high school. I decided I'm just going to watch all of Digimon again. So up to that point, I downloaded everything. It was Adventure 1 and 2, Tamers, Frontier, Savers, or Data Squad. And then, that was like 5 Digimon shows that I watched. And some I liked, some I didn't. And I had a 500 gigabyte hard drive that I had gotten for Christmas, and I loaded them all up on this hard drive, and I just carried them around, and I was so proud of my little library of Digimon.
Nice.
Yeah. Other than that, and that was the only one I even tried for a long time. When I was in college, I want to say my second year, I had a friend who, this is at Georgia Tech. I don't know how he got these episodes, but he had a server that was online that he gave me a password to, and I could go into his personal library and stream and download whatever I wanted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was where I watched Code Geass for the first time. That was really cool. I probably watched a couple other things. I want to say I watched Mushishi. I think I watched that quantum mechanics show I've mentioned before. I can't remember that. Oh, it's called No Wayne. I think that was there. Yeah, there was a couple shows. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I would just go in his library and be like, all right, what looks interesting?
Yeah.
He was a nice guy, but yeah, a lot of illegal anime downloading. Because at the time, I just didn't know how to watch it. I don't even know what these shows are, much less where they are.
And that's the most interesting thing about it. Like, just, in the Wild Wild West days, there wasn't really, other than like man, there used to be a store in the mall, like Hollywood Video, or not Hollywood Video. It was like a big store that had a lot of like DVDs, and I don't even know if it exists anymore. But like that was like the only place that I knew where you could buy like anime.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember the name.
Man, it used to be. Yeah. It was huge.
It had CDs in there too.
Everything. Yeah. It was like that was like the place for anything CD oriented, DVD. And so like I said, I have an older brother, and I know that like when I was in middle school, I was still like unawares of what was really happening. My brother would watch these shows with Rob, who's been on the podcast, and they were way above my pay grade. They were grown man shows and I'm way too young. And I wouldn't know what was going on. Like, that's how I saw Neon Evangelion.
Oh, yeah.
And Samurai X, which is not a show that I can necessarily recommend publicly. so I'm not recommending it publicly or privately.
Just said it.
Truly,
that's a recommendation.
And so there was a few animes that I saw. Like Samurai X was just super brutal, and I just remember like I don't know if it was Samurai X or I forget the other one, where like I'm just gonna be super real. What happened in it? That they killed Jesus in it.
Oh my!
Like it was a really I can't remember.
Why was Jesus even there?
Dude, I was so young. I mean, I don't even know what was happening, bruh. I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like this. It was just, my sister and my brother talk about it periodically, and I need to just write down what it was. I think it might have been Samurai X or something else, but Ninja Scroll. It was Ninja Scroll, but which I've never gone back to watch, and I doubt I will. But
don't blame you.
So Evangelion, I guess that might have been the first anime that I ever watched that I didn't really know, because I think that was dubbed. It was English dubbed, but and they had it on like DVD, So yeah, like back then it was just hard to get access to it. And the only way, I mean, the internet was growing, and there was a very, very dedicated community of subbers, like there's different clans. And they were known for like how they translated words. And the cool thing about the sub community was like they would explain details that you wouldn't get, from a dub, right? They would put up on the screen like, hey, the reason they say this word is because
they explain the context.
They give you context.
That's awesome.
And you pause it. Yeah, and so you learn a lot about like, oh, that's why they keep saying like Mendokse, or da-da-da-da. Like you just get context, or why a certain image, like in Naruto there's these crows that say something once in a while, and in English you don't get it just sounds like a crow going, "You're stupid," or something like that,
right?
But like it's saying a thing, and then there's like a context behind it, and you get this like it was really cool. But there was really no other way but to I think at the time it was just pirated, and that's when Crunchyroll came around. Like Crunchyroll became the first spot that was like kind of sort of not illegal to watch anime.
Or fully affiliated.
It was definitely not illegal.
Not fully, because there's some anime.
I know it got better over time, right?
Yeah, right.
They're still
like
around.
Eventually, yeah. I mean, it went. It's like the dude who sells, on the block, and now he's got a what do you call it? A dispensary.
He went
now.
straight.
Now that he went straight, he survived.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, Crunchyroll was like the first like legitimate, and you were sure you weren't going to get a virus on Crunchyroll, but everywhere else was, man, dangerous. It was dangerous, son. It was dangerous.
Hope you like malware with your anime.
Really, or pop-ups. Just click on the wrong link. It's not a site, or you're going to another site you weren't ready for. So it was dangerous. So let me ask you guys this: like, what do you think is like the biggest difference between Japanese animation, like, and American animation? I know, Steve, you're mentioning a little bit, but like, when you think about the two, and as you've gotten older, because the thing is, like, Japanese animation. Well, I have thoughts about it. I'm not gonna put any thoughts in y'all's heads. What do you guys think is like the biggest differences, or some of the things that really are clearly different for you when it comes to American animation, and Japanese animation?
I could go, I guess. So I think the spectrum kind of starts with, I mean, and this is just, I guess, from this side of things, growing up with American animation, the relationship to how, I guess, the entertainment on television is organized. Like, when I think about popular animation, American animated series, we could probably all guess the top two, like the longest running animated series, right? And they have like nearly identical formulas, carbon copied from, since I guess the beginning of like common television, if you will, like the self-contained sitcom episodic motif. We got Simpsons and Family Guy are up there, right? And so to me, anime is characteristically different in the fact that, it's, in my experience, again, it's pretty linear. Like, a lot of times, conflict is presented and resolved in a particular episode, similar to how sitcoms do. But at the end of it, it's still pushing forward like a larger story, where common American animation, Simpsons as a reference, doesn't push a larger narrative forward. Everything that happens is fully self-contained. You watch that episode for that episode, not to get something. Like, you don't have to watch the previous episode for any reason. But I feel like in anime, you, in most cases, need to, unless it's, filler or something. But, so.
Yeah. It's interesting because I remember, like, thinking as a kid when, like, Simpsons would come on, it would come on at, like, 6 p.m. every day, right? And I know this because I used to get in trouble because I had, like, piano practice at, like, 5 or something. And I would always, like, try to, at 6 or 5:30, and I'd like see the episode of Simpsons coming on, and I'm like, I don't want to go to piano practice. But anyway, but it was always interesting because, like, you could watch. I remember like watching The Simpsons, and like it occurring to me, like, oh, all these episodes are just super random.
Yeah,
like they're reruns, but they're not like linear, like you said. It's just like, this is from 2 years ago. This is from this year. This is from and it was just kind of like.
Matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
But the motifs stayed the same. The characters were the same. So you could always get something from it. So yeah, I definitely agree with that from an American adult animation standpoint.
American animation is just slice of life anime.
Yeah.
Like,
it really follows the sitcom. Yeah, like Kyle said.
Think about like King of the Hill. I feel like that's, people joke like, oh, King of the Hill is just Texas anime. But it really kind of is. If you consider it as a slice of life anime, it has a lot of the characteristics. That's like interesting storytelling, good characters.
I think it breaks the common mold too. Like, there are a lot.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah.
King of the Hill noticeably has a larger world than The Simpsons.
Right.
And it's interesting because it's made by the same person, Matt Groening. Right?
Mike Judge. No, it's Mike Judge who did King of the Hill.
I thought it was had the same
Groening.
guys.
Groening did Simpsons and Futurama.
Futurama. That's right. You're right.
You can tell because they don't have a massive overbite.
That's the key.
You got to have a massive overbite. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, one thing that I've always noted, like especially when it comes to children's animation, like think about My Hero Academia, and then like compare it to any like children's focused like animation. Like
I think Teen Titans would be like
the closest.
The closest thing, yeah.
But here's the thing that's interesting to me in this is that like I feel like Japanese animations, their goal was to like mature with their viewers. Like if you look at Naruto, like not all of them, but like the long running ones, like One Piece, Naruto, even Bleach in some ways, Dragon Ball Z even, it was like they started you as like, hey, you're a kid and things are kind of like fun and like lighter, and we're telling you about friendship and nakamas and like, like you're getting it. And as you mature with the show, you might have started a show when you were like in 6th grade. 6 years later, it's a much more like adult show.
Yeah.
Like Naruto really graduated with me. I felt like I grew up and Naruto grew up with me, like most shows I feel like in America, it's like, this is the time, this is the feel, and this is what it is, right? Like Batman was Batman. Like it was a pretty dark, gritty show, but it didn't like have any nuance. You didn't follow the characters. Like Teen Titans, like you said, but it kind of felt like Teen Titans was for like teenagers. Like they have teenage angst, but they weren't really growing up. You didn't see them. You saw them deal with complex and difficult situations, and there was kind of these overarching storylines, but
the world didn't like become more adult around them. If that's
around them, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that I don't know if it's like, that sounds like it's like a gamble if you think about it, like because you have to really believe that your show is pulling your audience along with you, and also like there's a much heavier onboarding for a Japanese animation, an anime, than there is for like Teen Titans.
Yeah.
Like sure, like in Teen Titans, you don't know who Slade is. You don't know, like you might be confused about that stuff, but you could just watch a random episode and you could get it. But I'm sorry, good luck watching a random episode of Naruto, without context of all who these random characters are. Like you could probably enjoy it a little bit, but it's probably mad confusing,
I don't know if I would say that that's a hallmark quality of anime, the fact that it grows up with the viewers. I mean, you mentioned a few, but I'm like, I think
I'm
most
just
don't
noting
do that.
a big difference. I'm just noting one of the big differences. I don't think that's all animes, because some don't do that. That's just one of the things that I've noted that I don't really see with American animation.
Yeah,
I guess so.
And that's kind of a funny point you bring up too, is because since American animation in this scenario does rely heavily on following the same structure as the sitcoms, especially in the 90s, to the point you just made, the people in sitcoms did grow up like physically, and so the stuff they would go through was different. Like I think of Family Matters, because I started watching that when Urkel was he was still a couple years older than me, but he was still a kid. And then if you watch the last few seasons, they're full blown adults, and so and that's something that doesn't translate. Like this, Bart Simpson's still like 11, so they didn't pull that side of it at all.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know if there's like one thing that I can pull out and say, I talked a lot about the fantasy elements, and I already mentioned all the things pretty much that I think are different about anime. I think that really though the important differences are the differences in culture and in the industries involved. So like, obviously Japanese culture is fairly different from Western culture, especially American culture, or at least it used to be. I'm sure there's a lot more overlap now. But like, there's different values, different cultural like touch points that people will relate to and you write around. Most anime, from what I understand, especially back in the day, was based on manga. Like you didn't usually have original anime is usually based on a manga, and now you have light novels and stuff. Whereas not at all the case for American cartoons. Most American shows, it was just off the cuff. Not off the cuff, but it was original.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's the difference between like an original movie and a movie from a book. Not to say that anime is like bad in some way, but just that the writing styles are going to be different if it was originally a different medium.
Yeah. And I think that's why animes tend to be a little bit more deep, because like if you're writing a comic book, right? Like think about like Marvel heroes. Mm-hmm. They tend to be deeper. Like just there's something about the medium where if you're writing pains, right? Or, if you're having to write text to kind of communicate things and you have these still images, for some reason there's a deepness, or maybe it's just the culture of the manhwa, like comic book writer, they're just maybe a little bit more adult in their approach. I can't really say. I'm not I don't have a lot of experience in that world, but it definitely feels like just where anime is coming from is a lot more real. And I don't want to say, I think I don't want to say grounded because, it's fantasy, but like if you think about just name any American like animation
mm-hmm.
versus Japanese one, a popular one. Like I just think about, say, something like One Piece. One Piece is super, super popular in Japan. And one thing that One Piece is trying to really, really like deliver to their audience is like, you never give up on your friends.
Mm.
That's like the lesson they want to teach kids and I guess also adults. And it feels as if like everything that they do has this theme, and it's always the relationships are super meaningful because this theme has to like resonate, right? Like friendship, nakama, like, anybody who watches One Piece knows nakama, even if you don't know Japanese, if you've watched the sub, like it's super important. But if I think of something like I try to think of like Powerpuff Girls, like that show was awesome and great and had the same demographic as its target. But I'm sorry, Powerpuff Girls was just like about the Powerpuff Girls doing goofy stuff and Mojo Jojo and him, which is the most problematic character of all time, and like all these different things. But it didn't seem like it had a meaning. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what's the point?
I love Powerpuff Girls, but I don't feel like I walk away with going like, man, that was crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what you made me think of bringing up Powerpuff Girls was that there was an American animated show that I felt like kind of ticked a lot of the boxes that Japanese animes
do. Know what you gonna say?
Samurai Jack.
Oh, I forgot about Samurai Jack.
What were you thinking?
Avatar.
I was thinking Avatar.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely on the list too. But before that, Samurai Jack, because just to make such an enthralling story, but still have ridiculousness happen. I need to go back and rewatch Samurai Jack now. But
yeah, that's definitely an honorary anime.
Yeah,
and I would even say I think if you look, I remember when Samurai Jack came out, and there was this big push on the release, like when it first came out on Cartoon Network, because the voice actor for Samurai Jack was a comedian from Mad TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, really big that they're having this famous actor, comedian. And also it was this big emphasis on Japanese culture, right? So I 100%, and then even the art style they talked about was the idea that they were trying to do something different for American animation where they didn't use borders, like outlines. It was all just like
color,
which I still don't, I don't understand because I'm not an artist. You probably do, Kyle. And I really feel like Samurai Jack was a real, like, authentic approach at doing something in the animation space in the US.
Yeah.
And I really do feel like they lended a lot of what they did from Japanese culture, and I promise you from anime. I don't remember that being said when they're like on the build up, but I feel like,
Yeah, when you watch that show, it's oozing with that stuff.
And Cartoon Network still is like the champion for that spirit today, especially Adult Swim.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen some of the awful horrifying stuff on Adult Swim these days, like they're absolutely trying to like get the weird, quirky, artistic expression. Like if you've seen The Adventures of Tigtone, Smiling Friends, look completely different. Both American cartoon. Well, I wouldn't call Tigtone a cartoon, but I guess it technically is. Yeah, like mad props to Cartoon Network for doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. I definitely feel like Cartoon Network was like taking the biggest chance. But it's almost like they knew, like, it's kind of like Amazon. Amazon will do reckless stuff because they know, like, we got all the money, so it doesn't really matter if we fail here.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like Cartoon Network had such a strong, like, Disney could have done it, but Disney also is like, hey, we have a brand which is like friendly, family, you know,
Right.
Like they're kind of like Nintendo. It's like we can't really break too far from it, but Cartoon Network was willing. But you know what's interesting? As of course I say, you know what's interesting? My favorite phrase, like that if you think about how even American cartoons that were taking a chance on Cartoon Network, they still fell back into that thing that Kyle mentioned. That idea that you could not know what's going on and you could watch any episode out of context of the whole story and still be able to watch it, you know? And Samurai Jack, that was definitely the case. But going to our good neighborhood friend Avatar, that was like one of the first shows that genuinely you could not just jump into and like fully get, like there's some episodes you could get away with that, right?
Still appreciate
but it really it really played on what happened before and what was coming, you know,
Right.
Like what happened to Ong and you know to Qatar and everybody. Like you really need to know what the relationships that preceded them, right? Like, oh, why is Qatar feel some type of way about, you know, this character or that character, and why Aang feels some type of way about this and that. And it really felt like the first real departure from that sitcom method, you know?
And Avatar, it premiered on Nickelodeon, right?
Yeah.
And
credit to them too.
Yeah. And I at least a couple of years ago, I know Cartoon Network was kind of in hot water for having samey type shows again. And so it seems like there's like the ups and downs when it comes to, I guess, what they try to put out there. Because I agree that Cartoon Network especially has given so many like random artists a platform to make their shows, and like they'll run for one season and you know at least somebody got to see their work. And other stuff, like you don't think anybody will watch it and it'll be a hit. Like it's insane because you don't really know what's gonna catch.
I mean, I know I just gave them mad props, but I also had to call them out for The Problem Solvers. That show was so garbage, dude.
I don't remember that one.
I've never.
It barely went anywhere. It was really bad.
Everyone knew.
I've probably stopped paying attention to Adult Swim like a decade ago. like unless somebody told me to watch it, you know. Like I just because everything that I wanted to see on Adult Swim was just anime. You know.
Yeah.
So and
I'm trying to remember if Nickelodeon did another show because they had Danny Phantom, right? Wasn't that Nickelodeon too?
I think that was Nickelodeon.
That was Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
But was Danny Phantom, like to me, Danny Phantom felt sitcom-y.
Yeah.
You know, they had Fairly Odd Parents. They had
Danny Phantom kind of had like a episode of the week kind of thing, but there was definitely like a plot and progression happening.
Yeah. I feel like that was kind of where, at least when we were getting older, where like American animation, the older kind of like middle school to high school-ish animation was going. Like, we're going to stay a little bit sitcom-y, but we're going to progress things a little bit. But never too much, like
Yeah.
just enough to. The only show that I felt like, and I don't even know, I mean, maybe this wasn't even an American show, but Beast Wars, we talked about it before. Like, Beast Wars was one of the first shows that really had a forward progressing plot and consequences, like, and I just remember that standing out to me. And even, I mean, Reboot, once again, we got to do a reboot podcast, but like, it had consequences and it had a story moving forward, but it was still sitcom. It's like they were like really like, we know this is what people want, but we can't take the risk,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it seemed like it even still now in most media, American media especially, is there has to be a resolution in every session. It's like if your episode ends without everything being resolved, or at least enough things being resolved for your viewers, then everybody's going to be unhappy unless you like fade in part 2 coming, or something. And I think anime especially takes the liberty with that, where it'll just leave you on a cliffhanger
every time.
Mm-hmm. But did you? Well, I don't know. I was just thinking how. Well, first of all, before I say anything else, I just posted a link in the Discord. I want you to look at the link I just posted and understand why I'm so mad at Cartoon Network.
Okay, let me look. It's an image.
But what were you saying, Steve?
So I was saying how. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, we can't. Sadly, this is terrible podcast material, but look up problem solvers
with a Z. Problem solvers with a Z.
With a Z, and you will see the terrible.
It's the most
whatever that
eye-wateringly bad art.
They should be embarrassed.
And I just suggested that we don't watch Tigtone. This looks worse than Tigtone.
I mean, I want to say this before you make your point. Don't forget your point. There's only one other show that I think is worse than any show that you could ever say ever. Is Super Jail.
Ooh, I actually love Super Jail.
I think Super Jail definitely has its upsides.
Super Jail is the only show that I have literally stopped watching because something so inappropriate happened. I was like, I can't do this.
Oh, yeah.
I can't recommend Super Jail.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it was just so over the top. I was just like, not saying it's the worst show, but like, there's an episode that we can't even talk about on this podcast, but it was just too much. It was just
the best artistic merit of Super Jail is all of the detailed violence. They'll have a huge room with what feels like 100 people dying in different ways at the same time, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. And it's so detailed. That's the draw of Super Jail.
Yes.
For me, it was
many other things.
The camera direction. Like, they would be whipping things around, drawing these characters from these different perspectives. And it's like, most shows, they'll only do that for like the intro scene. Every episode of Super Jail, they were doing these crazy foreshortening, and it was insane. Like, every episode. So
I think insanity is the exact word for that show. And
100%.
And no listener on this show can I recommend Super Jail to. Just like I can't recommend Ninja Scroll. It's just not a show. But anyway, what were you saying, Steve? Before I brought up Super Jail.
What were we talking about before?
I did.
You derailed yourself.
I shouldn't say this.
I did.
Like, I can't even bring it up. I was like, Steve's gonna lose his stuff.
I know.
We were talking about the difference between Japanese animation and adult animation. We were talking about how the episodic and
episodic stuff. I don't remember exactly what I was going to say. I was going to point out that I think American shows have gone the other direction now, where like they're too narratively driven. And that's what I was going to say. I'll get to that in a second.
We're back.
I remember when I watched Digimon. And I remember thinking, like, man, these episodes, I feel like a good episode, if you're trying to be in the middle of these two different ways of writing, a good episode will feel like it has, like, a character moment. Maybe not a plot resolution, but at least a minor resolution or something for the character so that the next episode will be different and better. And, like, whatever plot is moving forward can move forward. Sometimes with like Digimon and probably a bunch of other shows, but I'm in my brain, I can just see this happening right now in Digimon. They would just have it felt like they cut the episode when it came to America. They cut it differently than it used to be. They probably didn't, but it just felt bad. It would be like, oh, and here comes the monster. What's going to happen? See you next time on Digimon, Digital Adventures. And I'm and it's the same with Pokemon. All that happens with Pokemon is they get rid of Team Rocket for the umpteenth time. Like, no one actually... Anyway.
Not an actual threat.
I feel like that's usually the mark of a good, like, episodic show is when... And the new Digimon actually does this really well, where... You know, there is an overarching plot that's moving forward, but each episode feels like something happens.
Yeah.
And what I was about to complain about is that a lot of TV shows these days don't really have that. There's the overarching plot, and that's it. Like, the episodes could have been cut. If you had 8 episodes, you could have made it into 12 episodes, and the pacing wouldn't have changed much. Maybe the cliffhangers wouldn't line up, but like in terms of like what the characters go through and like what happens, it doesn't feel like it really matters how long the episodes are, where they're cut, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah, I can agree.
In fact, that might be something you guys didn't like about. We were talking a long time ago about WandaVision. WandaVision. Well, I don't know. WandaVision did kind of have progression every episode, but it really just felt like they were just progressing the mystery.
Well, and that's the thing. It was like a progression to what end? Like, it's like, where are you going? Like, I don't know. Like, every other show that exists on the planet at least gives you a premise.
Yeah.
You know, WandaVision oddly somehow managed to not give you a premise. Which is, I think, a masterpiece in itself.
Yeah.
Like, how do you make a show with no direction?
Either you need a premise or you need money.
True story. Oh, you know, and I think one thing that like anime always reminds me of is like, I don't know what genre it is, but it's like The Walking Dead. It's the Lost. It's the like dramatic kind of show with like some overarching thing, you know, that's like very character driven. Sometimes it is like plot driven, like events are happening out of their control. And I feel like anime's always felt like that, but American shows, that tends to be an adult audience show, right?
Right.
Like The Lost is not for kids. The Walking Dead is definitely not for kids. No. But it felt like Japanese animation, though they saw their audience as children, they kind of treated their narratives like they were adults, you know? But here in America, we're just, you know, I love Adventure Time. But that show, I mean, Adventure Time has a very, very, very deep, dark story.
Yeah, I love Adventure Time.
But like, if you just looked at it, you'd be like, what is happening? And it's not like episode to episode isn't progressing the plot. It's just eventually they start to get really serious. Just out of nowhere, it feels like. Where anime feels like from the very beginning, they're trying to progress the plot, tell a story. I also have all the cutesy, fun, goofy characters. But at the same time, there's something happening, you know? And of course, that's not every single anime. But, you know, a lot of them have that formula of progression and meaningful, you know, stories and stuff like that, you know?
And I think American, you know, animators and the production lines, they take those things into account on purpose. Because I feel like if they were given full reign with shows like Adventure Time and regular show, because to me, both of those had very similar dynamic where it seemed like they did the episodic approach just to appeal to like their shareholders. But what they really wanted to do started to shine later whenever the concept was proven. They had these huge followings, all these fans, and they were like, okay.
They built out a ton of characters and lore that they could work with.
And then they kind of let loose. But I think that, these episodes that are really, really memorable in those shows are probably the ones that are closest to what their original vision was.
And that's, And that brings up this point that I think Steve mentioned earlier, that if you know anything about anime, is like most animes come from manga, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the benefit of coming from another source is that source is the proving ground, right? Rarely do you hear about an anime coming from a manga that was like not well received, you know? Like, it's like there's tons of manga, like tons and tons and tons of them, right? Like, just probably more than there are comics, or comics, in the US. But we only see like a subset of that. Like 10% make it to anime. And by that time, they already know that there's an audience for this. They already know the show is good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the story or the characters, whatever. And it's now just translating it to an anime, versus in the US, you have to prove it as you're going. Like you said, like Adventure Time had to prove that it was popular when it had nothing other than a time slot on Cartoon Network,
right?
And so I kind of get the approach and the difficulty that like you don't get the benefit of like Marvel movies where you already had a baked in audience from the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
Already have people who know well, maybe they know who Iron Man is, but people who care about the medium. And I feel like that's something that American animation doesn't have the chance of. You have to be good from the beginning, and the proven formula is the sitcom formula, versus something else. Like, and I feel like that's why Avatar was such a big risk,
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think outside of the animation space, I think that's also why The Office is like a cult, has a cult following, because shows like that really break. I mean, it was episodic in nature, but if you watch the whole thing, I feel like I don't. If that was an animated series, that it would have gotten a lot of appreciation in the similar way, because they did go against the grain in so many ways to a positive result.
But once again, I think The Office is an example of how we as Americans, like, if the first season of The Office existed, it would have got canceled. But The Office was already successful.
Oh, that's a good point.
In the UK.
Yeah, they stole it.
You're right.
So
they stole
it was already proven.
Already proven. Man.
So they already had like, the show, the first season's not that great. Because a lot of Office fans won't even watch the first season. Like, they'll just skip it and go start from the second. So, I mean, like, as this is a weird question.
Mm-hmm.
But when did you like feel like you knew you were an anime fan? Like, oh, I'm a weeb. Like I'm here. Like, when did, like, it's kind of like the conversation we had about video games in the past, where like, what's the difference between a person who plays video games and like a gamer? You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody who watches anime and somebody who's like an actual anime fan. Or, I mean, like, or do you even consider yourself an anime fan?
I think the difference is when you start seeking out the next anime, right? Instead of like, oh, someone told me this show is good and I watched it and I liked it. If you're then like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go back to whatever I was watching or whatever someone else suggests, like, that's cool. But I think if you seek out something, then you're a fan. And that's kind of how I feel about games in general, but also I would say anime.
Huh.
Okay. So when do you feel like you got to that point, like that you were seeking out?
Probably when I was looking through this dude's server. But if not then, it would have been like the next year when I was watching Attack on Titan and Bleach with my roommates, and like Ghost in the Shell. Like I watched that again, like over like a year. I remember making Kraft mac and cheese and throwing some sausage in there and eating that with Ghost in the Shell. So At that point.
That's so real. You just had like you relived that moment for a second. You're like,
Yeah.
I remember where I was, what my life was like.
I remember the chairs. I remember the table I sat at. That big fat laptop I was watching on. I had to use this exact headphones I'm using right now, so that I wouldn't disturb my roommate who was studying right next to me. Yeah.
Wow.
That's real. That's real. I mean, I can go into Kyle if you want to. I mean, for me, it wasn't actually, I think Bleach is what hooked me, but I don't think it was Bleach that solidified me as an anime fan. Because I easily could have seen myself not going any further than Bleach, because that was the only anime I was watching. It was Naruto. Naruto is what made me a true anime fan, because I think Bleach was a pretty like singular experience in the sense that I mean, I shared, if I knew somebody else was into Bleach, I talked about Bleach. But Naruto, I think, was the first show that I was like telling people they need to see.
Ooh.
Like, I feel like I converted my brother onto, like, my brother was already into anime, so I'm not going to say I made him an anime fan. He was already an anime fan. And Rob was already an anime fan. They preceded me. But like, I was telling them they need to watch Naruto, you know? Like, yo, you gotta watch Naruto. This show is so fire, you know? And like Bleach, yeah, I shared Bleach, but I feel like Naruto was like, now I'm going to seek out other anime like this. And because Naruto was still on the weekly release schedule, I was looking for stuff to fill the gap, you know, until Naruto came out, you know, or like looking up stuff and finding new websites where people were talking about anime, you know, and like Bleach started the journey, and Naruto guaranteed that I'd never leave, you know? And it was a decade later till I got the finish of Naruto, but it never ended for me. You know?
What would you say if I came in here and I was like, I don't think I am an anime fan. I don't think that ever happened to me.
Then you'd be me.
I would just say that you're lying to yourself. Like, I mean, I guess just from my own personal experience dealing with you, Steve, I'm sorry. If you watch JoJo on your own,
good point.
Like, you're an anime fan, unless you said that, you know, your wife, your significant other, you know, was saying, you better watch JoJo with me. Okay.
Or we're through.
But JoJo is not a show that, just like video games, like Dark Souls is not a game that you just give to, like you're the first game you give to somebody when they're learning to play video games.
First
like, like JoJo's. So I just wouldn't believe you. It's a cap. Cap. That's what I say. I'd call cap on you.
Hey, you're hip.
Yeah. Don't cap me.
I am hip.
So I have to say, based on the criteria, where do I fit? You know, I think that there are very few things that I advocate for in general. Gaming definitely up there, video games. So if the question was there, it'd be without a shadow of a doubt. And so I hesitate to say that I'm not, but that I am in the same way you guys are, because I'll say for me, watching it hasn't really drawn me in to where I seek it out to watch more of it. Usually whenever I get interested in an anime, it's either because of the music or the visual style. And so I'll more look up, you know, not highlights, doesn't even have to be animated, but just different things about the artists, who, you know, where their origins were, you know, reference, and then that'll bring me down tangents of other animes, or I say animes, sorry. I'm still learning other anime and the art styles of those. And so really I just get caught up in looking versus watching a lot of times. And so I don't see myself finishing series. And so I don't seek them out to watch them. And I think that started, if I had to give like an origin of where that started, I think it was in college. There was a girl in one of my classes, an incredible anime artist. Her name was Devin. And she was getting into it with one of our professors because if anyone's ever heard about, you know, being an anime artist in any sort of school setting that's related to art, they shy away.
They look down on it.
Mm-hmm. Right. They discourage drawing anime. And so, they were having a discussion, and to give credit, my professor was pretty understanding, but, at this point it'd been a routine thing, and they had discussion before. We're trying to specifically move you away from that for this project type of thing. And so something along the lines of, well, they all look the same. This doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. You can change it up for right now. Because I think we were creating characters for like a walk cycle, and this girl got really emotional because she knew anime on a deep level and had done this research that I hadn't done before, and found out that kind of what you were alluding to earlier is a lot of times when the shows are created, the whole world, the whole story is already written. But even before that, before any story takes place, they've developed each of the characters. And so she was saying that, even the background characters who may not say a word, who are probably fuzzy in the background and just onlookers for the main characters, even they have fully developed characters and things about them that explain why they're even there, who they are, what their motivations are, and all these different things. And like that really captivated me, because I was like, there's so much more that's deeper here than, that I guess I could glean from watching the show myself, that I could get from getting into the heads of these artists.
That's wow, that's deep. Let me ask you a question, Kyle. So we've talked about anime a little bit, and one thing that you've said a few times as we've talked about anime is that like you're not as well versed as say me and Steve, right?
Yes. And
I think would you categorize yourself as like do you see yourself as like a person who watches anime or an anime fan? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you see yourself as like, oh, like I want to know what the coolest and most, like, are you seeking anime? Like to truly, like you just said it, like you kind of seek it out to understand like the artist and the story and like the deeper things behind it. But would you say that you see yourself as like a anime fan in the sense of like, man, I gotta watch an anime. Like I haven't done it in a while, or is it more of a passive experience for you?
Between those two, definitely the latter. There are times where I don't know what to watch, and so I'll scroll through anime and sometimes choose one. But I don't watch a whole lot of anything really outside of YouTube. And so there are anime-related things I watch on YouTube. I just don't watch full episodes. So the short answer is no. I don't seek out anime from like a yearning that I haven't watched in a while.
Interesting. Now my next question is, do you feel that if you had been introduced to anime earlier in your life, like in a more tangible sense, and like some of the show, like, because you said you watched Dragon Ball Z in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of the forebears later in your life, I guess you could say, relatively, do you think that you'd more likely be an anime fan if you had like, in your teenage years, your middle school, elementary years, been like already invested? Do you think that would make a big difference? Or do you just feel like maybe anime doesn't just resonate with you as much as like something like gaming or something like that?
So the reasons why I'm a gamer and a musician aren't because I necessarily like doing those things, but I think because of my personality, both of those things are based around community. I had somebody to do these things with. And so I think if I had a similar experience with anime, where there was someone around that I could watch it with, talk to about it routinely, just have those developing interactions, even when I was in college, then yeah, especially early on. But yeah, I would think I'd have a completely different outlook on it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it seems to me, if I can speak for Kyle or to Kyle about Kyle
With
into
Kyle,
Kyle,
we are
it
Kyle.
seems to me that you, and this is for video games as well, that maybe you don't really experience these things on a personal emotional level as much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I only think this because of the conversations we have about games, but we usually talk a lot about the mechanics and the way things are done and the art, and like the parts of it, not necessarily like, oh, how did it make you feel, or like what was this experience like. Maybe with like Spider-Man you felt more like that, and I'm not saying that that's like the wrong way to appreciate games or something, but it does seem to correlate with how you appreciate anime, which is kind of at arm's length, like, oh, this is really cool. And like what you just said, which is the community, like, oh, I'll watch it with people and talk about it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You'll play games with us. You also play a ton of games that I would never play, but it seems like you play them to explore, like, oh, what did they do here? How did this mechanic work?
Yes.
Is that far off?
No, that's it. And I think that's just because it kind of cultivated. I used to do that with people, and so now it's just something that's kind of ingrained into me. I do it. Yeah, I'm alone now, but so
you're like the kid who takes apart the stopwatch to see what's inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then becomes a villain.
And then he realizes that anyone can make a watch.
Anybody,
human life is worthless.
A clock. Everybody's a clock, and everybody can.
All life has no meaning.
It's so crazy because my next question to you, Kyle, is going to be like, do you think that your experience with anime might have not been detrimented, but maybe didn't like really seed in you because it wasn't a communal experience? Because I think that even for myself, when I think about anime has always been communal, right? Like I might watch something by myself, but there's plenty of animes you guys will never know that I watched. But I think that in many ways it feels very, very much like I'm a part of a greater community, because when I started watching anime, it was with my friends and it was with my brother and like Rob and, people I met in college. We would talk about it like, oh, Heroic Ag or Naruto or whatever. Like we would have something that bonded us together,
Mm-hmm.
And I think kind of like similarly, like I really enjoy, like me and Kyle, for example, have had a few opportunities to jam together musically,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I really enjoy music. Like I love music, but for me, it's never been a communal thing. It's always been something that I did by myself in the darkness, like editing audio. That's what I do for this podcast. Like, I have my cajon sitting right behind me, my hand drum. Just for those who don't know what a cajon is, I mean, that's a super simplification, but like I love playing it, but I won't ever play it by myself. Like I think about it, but if like Kyle were to come through and start pull his bass out, I'd be like, cool, I would jam with him, but I wouldn't probably play it by myself,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I don't know if that's a human thing, but like I feel like that really makes a difference. But now I don't need a community to watch anime with, because I feel like it's just like you said, Kyle, it's like ingrained in you now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, like I just play games because I played games before,
Exactly.
like it's just a part of you, So yeah, I wonder what, okay, let me ask you another question, Kyle. And then I'd like to hear your thoughts, Steve, on how we could do this.
No.
Because he said, no, I'm good. You're not getting my thoughts. Like, I don't normally do this, but no, that'd be a lie. I'm always trying to
this
get
man
people
does it
on.
all the time.
all
Whatever it
talking
is, he
about.
does it constantly.
But think about this. How much do I pitch MMA to y'all to watch MMA? Like, never.
Oh, yeah.
Anymore.
I might tell you how awesome it is, like if it comes up in context, but I'm not gonna be like, yo man, you gotta watch MMA. It's so cool. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's not my vibe.
Oh, he
Share
But
with us a lot.
Yeah, I share it with you guys a lot because that's what I partake, and I see interesting things that I think might be relevant to you. But I don't share everything with you guys.
Right.
Like, you know. So this is me asking you, Kyle, what would it take, do you think, in your life now for you to be a like full-on anime fan weeb like me and Steve?
Ooh.
Like, do you even think it's possible?
Watch your mouth.
I don't want to be like y'all. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, nobody can be as much of a weeb as Steve.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to get to his level, but the last time I saw him, he had blue spiky hair, and subtitles were under him, and I'm like, "What is going on?"
I just walk around with subtitles,
and sometimes I can feel his killing intent. Like, it's just
my
like
spiritual pressure, my Ryatsu. And then I shadow step.
He did tell us about a story involving a samurai sword the other day.
Uh-oh.
So I believe everything you just said.
It's like, oh, somebody's here. I can feel their killing intent. It's Steve. But what would it take, do you think, to make you a full-on anime fan?
So I wouldn't say I don't like anime. Like I do, but I just don't like it, and I don't feel the inclination to give it more attention than something else. So I think ultimately you'd have to convince me to sacrifice something else. Because
sacrifice your son.
So because I think it's kind of like the same dilemma we kind of talk about, you know, which games we're gonna play, you know, even the I guess the reasons behind like this podcast sometimes is we're at a different stage in life to where, sure, if I was younger, one of the biggest reasons I would be able to get into anime more is because I'd be able to watch just as much anime as I played games because I'd have nothing but time. But since I guess the issue at this stage is time, then it's not so much convincing me to do it because I'd really like to do it. But it's just instead of what would be the thing now.
Interesting.
I wonder what would happen if we introduced Kyle to a show that really spoke to him.
Yeah.
I mean, but I bet you a show does speak to him in some way.
We got to figure out what that show is.
Like, I'll put it to you this way. So right now, especially, I'm pretty busy. And so I may have 2 hours of recreational time. I put it that way every day. And so lately I've been playing God of War, right? And so if I wanted to watch an anime, it would likely be in that same time slot.
Interesting.
What do you do during your lunch breaks?
Today I played God of War during my lunch break.
Oh, wow.
It's already there, son.
Yeah.
You tried.
I thought about that. I watched my normal show instead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I would pitch that, you know, and I don't know if it's okay. So you guys know I'm an MMA fan, but I didn't become an MMA fan until like maybe a few years ago. And actually, I was not like interested in MMA like at all. And I think what really changed it for me was one, that it was communal. Like, so, you know, my friends, Michael and Marcus, they're anime fans too, right? MMA fans. That's
friends.
Really weird in my brain.
You lost me.
Let's try again. Michael and Marcus are also MMA fans as well.
Okay.
And because I always have somebody I can talk to about it, it's good. But also, MMA is like, not that it's temporal, but the events happen at a particular time, right? So, there's a fight this weekend. So I know that Michael and Marcus are going to be watching the fights too, you know? Even if we're not in the same place, it's kind of a communal experience, you know? And it builds into our friendship. And also, you know, there's interesting characters and there's interesting fights and it's entertaining. And also, I feel like the first time that I really got into an MMA fight was I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings with them, and I felt the energy and the passion that everybody else was around, and it pulled me in. And I feel like it's hard to have experiences like that with, like, I don't know, any other media, like a media. Like, I feel like the only way that that Kyle would get really deep into anime is if, like, we were all like watching something at the same time that was like releasing like weekly, and we were all into it, you know?
Certainly
Like,
wouldn't hurt.
I think that would be the difference maker. But like nowadays, it's so hard to, like, you know, we all have little time. It's like hard to even get into that mindset, you know?
I
Like,
mean, I've been doing that. I've been watching Attack on Titan every week when it comes out.
yeah, but it would have to, like I said, it has to be communal, not just something that, you know, it has to be something like, and that's Attack on Titan season 4. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying that was the answer. I'm just saying, like, I'm still doing that. I used to think that would never happen, but I find myself waiting on hand and foot, or on the edge of my seat. I don't know. It's a different expression entirely. Waiting on the edge of my seat all week for a new episode to come out. And what's communal about it is that I have a bunch of other friends who are also watching it as it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And so every Monday morning we get on Slack and we're talking about what happened and like what's going to happen next week. And are they really going to finish at the end of season 4? I doubt it.
so is this the first anime for you that you've been watching as it was coming out at the same time?
No, I mean, I don't know what my first one was. I know that I was caught up on My Hero Academia for a while. I was caught up on Fire Force for a while. And when I say caught up, I mean, I actually would watch the new episode at some point after it came out.
Okay, but this is the first anime that you, in a while at least, where you're like thinking about it, and like when it drops, you're like, okay, this is a priority.
No, but it's the first that I would say. Yeah, I would say it's the first where it's a priority, but it's because it's the first that I knew other people were also watching, and they'd be talking about it the day after it dropped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about Bleach and Naruto, because I had a friend who ruined a big reveal for me on Bleach because I was like a few days behind, you know? Yeah, a really huge one, like a huge one. And he just kind of mentioned it in passing, and I was like, bro,
that stinks.
You know? So, yeah. So I feel like it's like, yeah, it's like anything else. So I don't know if there's a way for us to do that with you, Kyle. Like, if there's an anime that's coming out week to week, because I feel like everything just drops in batches nowadays.
Yeah, whatever it is, it can't be on Netflix because they always just drop everything at once.
And I'll say, if you want to suggest something I watch, you know, maybe also think of Mrs. Yams, because we have watched through, like when we watched Arcane, we watched that together at dinner. You know, so if it's something that's also palatable for her, then I would also have that slot where I could watch it then too, versus try to figure out how to watch it by myself.
That is interesting, because I feel you on that, because there's things that me and Shailene watch that I don't necessarily watch. Like, for example, we just watched Is It Cake? You know? And that show is, you know, it's one of those shows where you're like, this show is so stupid. Like, this is only going to get one season. And then you're like, I'd be down for another season. You know, like, it's a stupid show. But, like, there's certain shows that kind of fit us, you know? And I wouldn't say that Shailene's an anime fan at all. Like, she'll watch it if it's the right one, you know? But, yeah. So that's an interesting thought. Like, but I just think it's too many complicated factors to, like... It's
hard to find something that we'll like, that the girls will like, and that is currently coming out on a platform that we all share.
A lot of variables.
And like, it could be very community. Because, like, a video game is easy because we all, let's download it, let's play it together. Like, you know, it's us three who are going to play it. But, like, in anime... is very different. In anime, you don't really, it's like a passive experience. So it's like different, you know?
We could artificially do that. We could pick a show that's already out and then just say, we're going to watch an episode every week on the same day and then talk about it the next day or something. And if you don't watch it, then you're going to be left out from the other two.
Kind of like book club.
But it's a book club. But I feel like that's the thing. Like, it's the difference between a book club and friends that you read books with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like it's something that is you're forcing into your life, so it'll never feel like once we stop doing the anime watching club, you know, we'll return to our normal habits, you know, or if one of us, life gets busy and, you know, it's not a priority. So it's not that it's impossible. I just think that life is just life, you know, like how we get introduced to something really does affect how it matters in our lives, you know?
Can I make a suggestion for a show that maybe we could all watch together slowly?
Let's hear it.
And with our respective women.
You want to watch Digimon again, Steve?
I want to watch season 3 of Digimon. It's called Tamers. It's like the most interesting and adult, like it's the most mature. No, of course not. There's a show.
You've already lost me. I love anime, but I'm like, bro. I don't
There's a show. I mean, it's a kid's show. I'm not going to suggest that. There's a show that I keep hearing about and I see memes about. It's called Ranking of Kings.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay. I do not know. It seems to be on Funimation and Crunchyroll. And it's a really cute art style, and it's about I don't know too much, but all I know is it's about a prince who was born deaf and blind, I think, and he's just it seems like a wholesome show, but really good. People are calling it like one of the best anime of the season.
Huh.
Yeah, I've heard of it as well.
And it's not like a shonen, right? It's not ultra violent. I mean, it might be violent, I don't know, but it's not the typical show that maybe I would watch or that I would tell you guys to watch. And I think Kiesha would love it. Well, I think she would learn to love it. I think the first episode she'd be like, "What the heck?" But then she would get invested in the characters because apparently the characters are all incredible. So
let me ask you a real question, Steve.
All right.
If you introduce Ranking of Kings to your waifu, would she be able to?
She's not a waifu.
Your wife.
How dare you? Don't put that juju on
me. To your significant other, do you think she would be able to not watch it?
Like, would she be able to wait forever for, one episode a week?
To week,
I have no idea.
That's a no.
I think if I would have to introduce the idea to her before we started watching the show, like, this is what we're going to do. Prepare your heart. We can watch one episode on Sunday night or something, which is when we've been watching Attack on Titan.
And this is, I'm assuming shows like on Crunchyroll or something?
I've done almost no research, but when I Googled it just now, I saw a video on YouTube that was on the Crunchyroll account and one on the Funimation account. So
it's one and the same now.
Yeah, that is my research.
Yeah. And it's already out or it's like slowly releasing?
I believe it's already out. It either was slowly releasing and just finished or it will finish soon. Because it's a seasonal show, right? So, I mean, it's not going to... I've been hearing about it for, I want to say, close to a month now. So, it's probably pretty much done, if not done. At least the current season.
So,
we can look into it more, though.
Here's a modification to it. What if we do Ranking of Kings, but we watch Ranking of Kings like we would do for other shows, right? Like, if its season's already done, we would just, like, watch it at a pace, and then we'd talk about it here on the show. And when it comes out in the next season, we try to commit to, like, to watching it as it comes out, like, week to week. You know what I'm saying? And so...
What's the point? What's the point of not doing that now?
Just because I just feel like it's just like...
artificial.
It's artificial, and it is what it is, but I'm like... If we actually enjoy it and we get to the end of it and we talk about it and we're looking forward to it, like if Attack on Titan was on season 2, like right now, I think we'd probably all be watching it together, like, but since it's on season 4, it's kind of hard, It's like, I'm done with season 3, but also like it's just a lot of mitigating factors. But I feel like if we could get through it together, and then, I think we're going to be doing Super Agile Bros podcast for at least 17 years. So like so when the next season comes, we're already ready and we already know this already. So like, it's just something that we're committed to. I don't know. I'm just trying to find a balance, like what's realistic and like, how can we like do it together in the future? You know what I'm saying?
I think it could be fun to do it. We can decide later.
Yeah. But I'm down to try. Kyle hasn't said anything, but I'm down to try.
I've just been listening.
I will throw my cards
as usual
with the winning side.
And what?
He's just waiting for Victor to come out. Like, yep, I agree with the whoever's right. No, I'm kidding.
I'd be willing. I think I'm kind of in the camp. I'd be willing to try it. We'll pretty much watch the first episode of anything, and so at least you'll have some.
I just imagine the first episode just being the most inappropriate, out of pocket thing ever, and like Kyle like looking at Mrs. Yams like, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry."
They set me up.
Yeah. So, hey, man. All I know is that anime is incredible. It personally, for me, I don't watch anime as much as I used to, but it's like something that it's just ingrained in me now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I might not watch anime for a few months, and then all of a sudden I watch like 3 animes back to back. Like that's just how it is, and I'll seek it out. It's like a timing thing. Like right now, I'm playing Triangle Strategy. That's what I do in my free time.
This man's playing anime.
I am
living,
and I'm loving it, and it's a very interesting experience. But I don't know, anime is just, it's something special, man. I still remember watching Bleach in my dorm, eating Skittles, and just being in that moment and drinking Sprite. That and Naruto,
Sprite and Skittles together.
I wouldn't pour the Skittles in the Sprite. I would eat the Skittles.
Pour them together in your stomach.
You've never had Sprite with your favorite candy before?
Honestly, man, Sprite is such a non-drink to me, dude.
What?
Wow.
I'm about to get that. Those are fighting words.
Yeah.
I love lemon lime.
This man out here drinking Sierra Mist.
That's almost as offensive as Nega Steve.
That's right there.
I would say it's probably more offensive than Nega Steve. Nega Steve is not even on the radar. No, Sierra Mist. I definitely don't prefer Sierra Mist. I don't know. I like the dark colored drinks. You guys know me.
You're more of a
Pepsi man.
I'm a Pepsi man.
Oh, okay. Interesting. No, honestly, I'm just a sugar fiend. So it doesn't matter how I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me back in the day, that's literally, it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually started drinking water. Like, literally.
Never drink literally.
Like, I was telling somebody the other day, I said, like, don't Kool-Aid got water?
Ooh.
But that's not how our bodies work, so.
I can see you sipping on, whoa, what's this new beverage? Water. My first experience with a similar like Skittles Sprite thing was when I worked at Bed Bath & Beyond. Probably a quarter of my paycheck would go to, whenever I closed the store, I would always buy a Sprite and a pack of Mike and Ike's.
Oh.
And
that ritual.
That'd be my closing snack. Oh yeah, dude. Every night.
I definitely love sweets. I like more of the fatty sweets, so like chocolate.
Oh. Yeah. So the decadent, the like more, I don't want to say savory because that's not the right word, but things that really...
more of a full body flavor.
Yeah. Like, what about Twix? Is that full body to you?
Yeah.
Caramel.
Twix is good. Some caramel, some
caramel.
Some nougat.
Some nougat, that's good, man. I got some Twix.
Nougat is definitely one of those words that you could bleep out and make it sound like I'm saying something.
It's like as an adult now, like I can buy most anything that I ever wanted to as a kid, like any candy at least.
Yeah.
And it's terrible because now I have to actually think to myself, like, this is not good for me.
I shouldn't have this.
like the first time that I ate a whole bunch of like Oreos, just
snap.
back to back to back to back, like a whole bag in my mid to late 20s. And then I was like, oh my goodness, my body is not feeling this today. Like as a kid, I'd be like, eat a bag of Oreos, get beat up by my brother because he'd be mad at me. Then I'd eat some Skittles, drink some Sprite, drink some Fruitopia, and I'd be straight. Then go outside and play basketball without stretching.
That's your fuel.
That was my fuel.
This man farting pure sugar.
just purely I'm dunking on fools. Yeah. Like,
speaking of farting pure sugar,
what?
Let me tell you about this show I watched recently called Larva.
There it is.
We can actually do this tangent if you want. If there's something else you wanted to say,
let's hold the larva because we're at that time. We need to wrap it up.
How long is the tangent?
You're right. We're about to have an early episode. Wow.
Is it early?
Early-ish, yeah.
Early?
Yeah, usually we're like brushing up against 2 hours, 2 to 10.
No, we just started late because of me. So this would be a 2-hour podcast. I mean, share about larva. Let's talk about it.
No, you're right.
We're here now.
Let's
we're
stop
here
at
now.
145.
Everyone's listening.
Let's give the listeners a break.
They're anticipating larva now.
You have to talk about it now. Larva talk. Let's go.
So Larva is this show on Netflix. It's 3D animation. It's cheap animation. It's absolutely cheap, or at least it looks cheap. How do I describe this? It kind of has it has good textures, like high quality textures, but it also kind of feels like old Shrek movies, like that DreamWorks era, like not quite Pixar, but old DreamWorks. You know what I mean, or old Pixar even. Okay. But the show, it's I don't want to say it's incredible, but there's certain things that it does really, really well. So on its surface, it's really like the textures and the character designs are kind of ugly. The two main characters are these two cartoon larvae, and they're in kind of like a Bug's Life type situation, like a world. So like they're living in the city. There's not really any like specific city or lore or anything. They're just in a city. And the 20-minute episode is made up of like 10 1 or 2 minute clips, like self-contained little stories. There's no dialogue. It's just like screaming and groaning and voice acting and crying and stuff. And might I say, a lot of it's over the top screaming. Like I think they pull in like stock audio
this
of
sounds
like horror movie
familiar.
screams sometimes.
Like the Will Hammond.
Is one of the episodes involved
not that.
like a
It'll
can?
be more like the like.
It sounds really familiar.
I can't do it. I'm not a voice actor. Anyway, but they're larvae. They don't talk. They use their tongues for everything because they don't have hands or feet. So like if they're trying to run, they will just stick their tongues out and use it kind of as like a monopod, and they'll like limp around like that. When they hug each other, they use their tongues. When they're grabbing something, they use their tongues.
I think I've seen this before.
Yeah, you might have seen it before, and you might have immediately turned it off because that's my first reaction. But what I love about the show is, one, they do a really good job of, with no dialogue, communicating the emotions and the thoughts of these characters. So it's like 2 little minute vignettes, I guess, and there will be a problem, like, oh, it's really hot and they're trying to drink water, or it's really cold and they're trying to find shelter, or one of the other bugs is bullying them, or they're in the shade but the sun is really hot and the ground around them is boiling hot and the shade is moving, and the closest shade is across the sidewalk. Just really easy to understand problems that they're trying to solve quickly. And the humor is actually really good. It's kind of corny. There's lots of like fart and poop jokes, but like the gags are great is what I'm trying to get at.
You may have said this, but do some of the episodes take place like they're in a sewer?
Probably. I haven't seen any, but I wouldn't be surprised. There was an episode where the street is flooded, it's raining, and they're getting washed into the storm drain, but one of them has grabbed a branch that's hanging off a low tree with his tongue. And then 2 or 3 of the bugs are grabbing each other in a line. And then a frog is trying to grab them with his tongue from the sidewalk. And it's just very quick. Like the tables will turn like four times in like 10 seconds. Like they just gag after gag after gag. And it's so funny. Like I was actually laughing out loud at this stupid, what appears to be a kid's cartoon. And then it just wraps up. It's like a 2-minute thing and it goes to the next one. And I'm like, it's exhausting. You watch one episode and it feels like an hour.
Wow.
But yeah, I was really impressed. I'm not going to keep watching the show because it is very off-putting. But I'm really impressed with what they've done with what appears to be like a really low budget.
Might be one guy.
I genuinely wish you could see my face right now. Because
I'm just picturing the larva. Is that close?
Post it in the Discord.
My tongue is out. And,
and he's working the mouse with his tongue.
And I moved the mic closer to me. Look, I don't know what you just said, but that sounded like the most crackheaded thing I've ever heard in my life. Like legit, right. I'm sitting here like somebody. I don't even know if the person got paid for whatever you're watching, but somebody had an exchange of currency for this. And I just honestly don't know what is going on. I'm like speechless. I'm genuinely speechless. I'm like, what?
It's on Netflix.
And I'm assuming you watched this by yourself.
I was with friends. We had some friends over. It came up on the screen. I clicked on it. We watched it for a few minutes, and I'm like, okay, this is enough.
That's enough.
I was enjoying myself, but I was like, I feel self-conscious.
For the sake of your friends.
And then later,
for the sake of your relationships.
Yeah. And then later during my lunch break, I finished the episode.
You returned.
You wouldn't dare watch this with Mrs. Steve.
I turned the lights off. I locked the doors and closed the windows, and I finished the episode.
Steve, what are you doing in there, Steve?
Nothing. Put my tongue back in my mouth.
Oh no!
But yeah, I was really impressed. As in terms of what it is and what it's setting out to be, I think it's nearly perfect.
Huh.
Well, I want to apologize to the Academy Awards and to everybody.
Hopefully they'll have
watching that wasn't anime, but that was something. And
I mean, it's animated.
It is. I don't even know if it's an American animation. That sounds like the kind of thing that's coming out of like.
Oh yeah.
I think it's Korean.
Kyrgyzstan. I don't know. Like, shout out to Kyrgyzstan. I'm not trying to, take any shots at y'all. I'm just saying.
Despite taking shots.
Seems, I'm not taking shots. I'm just saying that, you know what?
You know what y'all do.
Anyway. You know what y'all do. Anyway, my point is that I don't even know what to say. Do you guys have any closing remarks? Because I'm literally trying to collect myself.
I thought of another show that I just want to mention it as like one of the other gateway animes, in my opinion. I think it's further on the side of like being more westernized, but the Jackie Chan Adventures show. I don't know if you guys ever seen it.
Jackie Chan.
That was solid.
The talisman. Yeah, I love that show. I love that show.
Yeah, it was.
You know what's weird?
Incredible.
It's about like Asian culture, but it didn't feel as much like anime as Avatar did. Like it felt like an American cartoon to me.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it feels more like Chinese animation or something. Like if you were to like watch Chinese.
I don't know
a
good sense of Chinese animation.
That's what I'm saying. Like maybe like Samurai Jack is to Japan. Jackie Chan Adventures is to Chinese animation. I don't know. I'm just saying something. I'm just talking,
guys. Don't take it for serious.
I'm just saying maybe. I mean, it definitely had the American formula, right? Like, but it definitely had a forward progressing plot, and Jackie was always going, whoa,
always falling from somewhere.
Bad day.
Bad day. What was it? Look here, or whatever you'd say. I can't remember. I love that show, man. So it was great. Thank you for reminding me. I'm gonna go look that up because I watched. It was on Hulu for a while or something.
No kidding.
That's cool. and I rewatched it.
Great show.
It might have been on Netflix or something, but I remember rewatching it on a digital platform. But shout out to Jackie Chan Adventure. First of all, Jackie Chan is my favorite martial artist.
The GOAT.
You know, and there's a lot of great ones, but Jackie Chan is my favorite for sure. Yeah, I mean, I assume you don't have any more last comments because Steve. Because,
no, I don't deserve any. Go on.
That's
we don't want another larva incident.
You ever watching a lot of videos about like retention, like YouTube retention? Like, well, not watching those, but I've been watching like stuff from like really large YouTube creators and just what makes them, successful and how they learn. And retention is one. And I feel like on our retention graph, people are going to be turning off our podcast to go watch that larva show. Like they're not mad at us. They're just like, I got to go see this now. Like what?
No, they're not mad at us. They're mad at Steve.
I honestly don't think that would be a bad decision. If you're curious, give it a look.
But they won't come back. They won't come back after they see it.
Well,
and
they'll
they
come
go,
back.
Oh,
they'll come back because they want to know what I had to say about it.
No.
Like,
They're going to say, I
again.
don't care what this man has to say because if he's going to even bring up larva,
they'll be like, what kind of man?
Exactly.
I got to know more about this man.
He invalidates this
Sorry,
whole
ladies.
podcast. Sorry, ladies.
I'm married.
Ladies. Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode. Hey, as always, I just want to thank the brothers themselves. Thank you, Kyle.
Always a
Thank you
pleasure
for being here. And thank you to the larva himself, Steve. Thank you.
Brother Steve, the larva king.
I'm answering, but it's with my tongue. So
He's just scraping his tongue across his mic. I appreciate that. And of course he did it.
Wow.
Without a doubt, I knew it was going to be done. I said, if
You
I
called it out.
he's going to do it.
if I hear it, I do.
We're not better for it.
And of course, I like to thank myself. Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Brad.
But no, really, thank you everybody for watching, listening, watching, hearing this episode of Super Agile
Smelling.
Bros. As always, we appreciate, just being a part of our community, being a part of our family, being a part of Super Agile Bro Nation. Shout out to all our Super Agile Bros. Shout out to all of our Super Agile sisters. We love you guys. As always, remember you can follow us on Twitter at the SAB Podcast. And of course, we're on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. We everywhere.
Everywhere.
So just search us on the Googles and you'll find us, Super Agile Bros. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. And always, we're happy to have you. And until next time, peace.
Oh,